Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Friday, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at Mars retrograde in the sign of Leo, and we're going to take it through all 12 whole signs, giving you some horoscopes to work with. And this is about a month in advance of Mars actually turning retrograde in the sign of Leo, but I think that it's good to start thinking about the topics now because Mars is in Leo and is starting to work into the degrees through which it will retrograde later in December. I'll present the timeline for everybody, and then we're going to do flash horoscopes, which means I'm going to spend a very brief amount of time looking at the topics of the house and giving you a sense of what topics to look for given your rising sign. Now, of course, you could listen to this if you like to listen to sun sign horoscopes. Listen to whatever sign you usually listen to, right? But that is where we're heading for today. Remember to like and subscribe. We're seeing if we can get to 80,000 subscribers next on the channel by the spring equinox. So big thank you to everyone who has helped us nearly double our monthly average in subscribers. It's free to do so, and it helps us grow our community and channel and business. We really appreciate it. Transcripts of any of these daily talks, as always, can be found on the website, nightlightastrology.com. Two promotions today. One is the November webinar, which is coming up on the 21st. You can sign up under the live events tab. And on the menu page there, on the homepage, excuse me, Pluto and Aquarius, AI, Aliens, and New World Orders on November 21st is the webinar I'll be presenting. If you can't attend live, you get the recording. Hope to see some of you there. That should be a fun talk. I'm really looking forward to it as Pluto's entering Aquarius again this month. And then, of course, in just 1 week from right now, it'll be the final day that you can register for the new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic. It starts on November 16th. It is not too late to join. Need-based tuitions at the bottom. We have that there available for people who might need a little bit of help to make the program happen. After I sign off today, there's an informational video about the program, which I tag on to all videos during enrollment season, so you can learn more about it if you want to come study with us. It's a great election to do so. With Pluto moving into Aquarius, Uranus into Gemini in the year ahead, those make for some really good transits under which to begin an astrological apprenticeship. Whether you want to practice professionally or not, the program has been developed over the years for people with different varying levels of interest and intention. So studying ancient astrology is something that you're doing for the sake of just being able to develop your own relationship with your own chart, your own transits, maybe those closer to you, or if you want to practice for other people. The program kind of meets you where you're at and is really great for students of all levels and backgrounds. Hellenistic astrology is a beautiful, beautiful form of astrology to study. And I think whatever practice you may already have, it will do nothing but deepen your existing understanding to go back in time and learn about the origins of all of our craft and theory. So anyway, the informational video is tagged on to the end today. We start in just a week. So hope to see some of you there. And on that note, I'm going to shift over to the real-time clock, where we are going to be looking at Mars in Leo through all 12 whole sign houses, some brief flash horoscopes to kind of remind you of what's going on. First of all, let's lay out the timeline. Today is Friday, November 8th. If we take this forward just a little bit, we're going to see that Mars in the sign of Leo is going to move all the way up to the 6th degree by early December, and then it stations right around the 7th and is retrograde by the 8th. So between the 6th and the 8th is the range in which I describe the stationing, the turning retrograde, that whole process, which people often experience as one of the most acute parts of the Mars retrograde process. That's where you will often see very significant shifts in momentum or life direction, especially if you have planets in the first 5 or 6 degrees of fixed signs. You want to watch for that in particular. But what I'm going to do now, because regardless of whether or not you have planets being activated, everyone's going to experience this transit by whole sign, which means the topics of the house will be active during the Mars retrograde. Now, one thing I should actually mention, the retrograde happens the 8th of December, but Mars is going to be in Leo. It is November 8th right now, all the way until, here it is, wait for it, January. Let's do it by hour just to be absolutely certain. Yeah, we get it there. It's about January 6th, 4 in the morning, January 6th, right? So that's a long time for Mars to be in Leo, and it spends a whole month retrograde in the sign of Leo. So that's not nothing. And I see a lot of people, and I've even done this a little bit, so almost focusing on the upcoming retrograde as though the whole story is happening in Cancer. And certainly there's a significant amount of this upcoming retrograde that's going to be in the sign of Cancer, what to speak of its eventual direct movement through Cancer, which lasts a long time. And we'll be looking at that for sure, but we can't just skip over the Leo portion. And so today I just wanted to do some flash horoscopes, get us ready for what part of our chart is going to be active, and some ideas to work with. Now, generally speaking, for all 12 signs, I want to emphasize a few things before we get into it. I'll turn this off for a second. One, if you have not yet watched the major significations of Mars retrograde that I did yesterday, be sure to check that out, because I'm going to list some general themes and significations that you can see, which may give you a number of ideas that you could then apply to the topics of the house we're covering today. So I recommend these videos almost like as a pair that you should really take together. If you haven't seen yesterday's yet, you can listen to this and then go listen to that one as well. It's not like you need to do them in order, but I would recommend listening to both. Now, the other thing I want to say in general is that there's a psychological way in which Mars retrograde can pertain to things like our willpower, our efforts, our ambitions, things like anger and frustration, and how we work with those energies in our lives in hopefully constructive ways. But maybe Mars retrograde is a period of time where we have to learn how to use them in more constructive ways. Mars retrograde can be periods of time in which things feel like they're not moving, or there's a lack of momentum in something that we wish we had more control over, or we wish we were achieving more with. And that's because, in a sense, it's as though Mars stops working. This one basic like Mars retrograde signification can be that, like, I want to do something, I want to get something, I want to go somewhere, and I'm feeling frustrated or prohibited somehow. But on the other hand, you will see that people who have often dealt with a lot of frustrations in the past may find that suddenly they're accessing a little bit more Mars. They're accessing a little bit more effectiveness, power, capability, confidence. Retrogrades can be a turning point for how your relationship with Mars is working. I talked about the fact, for example, that as I was coming out of the Bhakti yoga tradition and starting to focus a lot more on health and care of my body, among other things, shift in priorities and focus for me, you could say spiritually and personally, I found out that I had pretty low testosterone. And so I started using testosterone replacement therapy to get my numbers up into a healthier range. That had a tremendous impact on my life, happened during a Mars retrograde. Started being able to put on a little bit more weight at the gym, has aided in the past year or two in ongoing changes in my health, my physique, stuff like that. So that all started under a Mars retrograde. And I've shared that many times on my channel. I shared that yesterday's video as well. But it's just to say that it's not always that Mars will simply break down and not work. You know, for me, it was a time of revising and reworking the Mars principle, you might say, with respect to things like my body and health, and a new workout routine that came into my life, and getting a coach as a bodybuilder, for example. All of those things and the lifestyle of bodybuilding as a fitness hobby, you could say, came into my life during a Mars retrograde. Often athletes will refine or perfect their shot or their stroke as say a golfer while Mars is retrograde. So Mars things can get refined and made better somehow, or they can improve during a retrograde. Or sometimes you deal with the feeling that you're lacking power or effectiveness, or your ambitions are, they're falling flat somehow. There's a lot of things that Mars retrogrades can represent. So work within that video I made yesterday that kind of outlines the various ways in which Mars retrogrades can express themselves, apply to the house topics that we're visiting today. Then you have, I think, a good full set of tools to work with and interpret the significance of this in your own chart. I recommend listening to this for rising signs because that will correspond with the whole sign house version of your birth chart. But you do what you want. All right, let's go. Aries, we are going to see Mars in Leo all the way through early January, with the retrograde coming in early December. In the 5th house, now this is a place that is associated with things like creativity and pleasure and joy, and things that give us a feeling of being in touch with something authentic and creative that is within us. It is like the essential spirit and its ability to creatively make and express things that are authentic. This is a way of thinking about the 5th house. 5th house is called the joy of Venus, the place of good fortune, the joy derived from one's dharma. So with Mars in the 5th, I wonder how you will be looking at reorienting, shifting, prioritizing, refining your creative life. This could also have something to do with shifts around children, if you have them, or shifts in how you lead children, for example, how you act as a role model. This can also have to do with various challenges you are facing in, parenting. And I would also like to say that, any kinds of ambitions you have that are creative in nature could be going through some kind of refinement or transformation with this transit. I'd also like to say that any kind of examination of what gives pleasure, what is pleasurable, could come up for you as an Aries with this Mars retrograde. What you have control over and what you do not with respect to pleasure may be another way of looking at it. All right, that's Aries. For Taurus, we're in the 4th house, and we're talking about home, family, property, parents, parental and family karma. And it is possible that as Mars is the god of misfortune and challenges and confrontation and stuff like that, that you're going through a period of revisiting old conflicts, or you're looking at issues in the family, conflicts that have some history behind them. Things like the conflicts and ancestral demons from the past. Like, there could be a very Mars retrograde in the 4th house, things vanquishing ancestral demons. Maybe it's a little too dramatic, but Mars in the 4th house can also be about shifts with respect to things like the power dynamics within the household, leadership and parenting qualities in the household, marriage, and how you deal with conflicts in the home and living environment. It could also be that there are new projects or delays or revisions or refinements of some kind within the home or your living environment that are important. We could also be seeing issues particularly with fathers, since the 4th house is associated with the fathers, and especially Mars and Leo in that house. Let's move on to Gemini. With Mars in the 3rd house, the topic of siblings comes to mind as one that might be of major significance during this upcoming retrograde period. It could also be that communication and the mind and conflict and how you handle conflict, both mentally, verbally, emotionally, how you communicate and how effective you are at communicating when things are difficult or there's contention or conflicts of value, all come to mind. The other thing is that Mars in the 3rd house can just suggest chaos and disruptiveness in the immediate environment, in the neighborhood, whether that's like a construction project that's just annoying that's in your neighborhood, or if it's something to do with the everyday environment and how it's having an impact on your day-to-day life. It could be temporary setbacks or limits or frustrations that you have to deal with and work around somehow in the kind of day-to-day ecosystem of your life. I also like this as a time where you may be reconsidering or rethinking some of your most pointed judgments or ideas or opinions. Mars retrograde can soften your position or your view of someone or something. So look for that, as well as other themes around communication and conflict. If we move to Cancer, we're talking about Mars in the 2nd house, which is the place of money, values, resources. This is your assets and those things that you try to cultivate or develop, build, whether that's money or skills, any kind of resource that you're in the process of building or developing. And there may be some way in which you are building or developing something and then temporarily set back or asked to revise or refine something that you're building, whether it's a skill or money. There could be some costs or some expenditures that come up that you have to deal with, or could be some kind of revision of how you manage your money, your assets, your time, your energy, your resources in general. I like this as a kind of entrepreneurial energy, but also an energy that can help you evaluate and look at how effective the uses of your time and energy are, or how effective different business strategies are, and maybe also some conflicts coming up around money or spending in general. Now, let's move to Cancer. Leo rising. That was for Cancers. So Leo rising, it's in your 1st house, and we are talking about a kind of work that's happening on the level of character, identity, behavior, body, psychology, health, a very personal place in the 1st house. So Mars retrograde here can signify a significant shift when it comes to your own sense of who you are. Like, am I a strong person? Am I, maybe I'm a little overpowering and I'm learning to chill out. Maybe I'm learning to step up and be more assertive. Those Mars themes in the 1st house can have a direct impact on your self, like your self-concept, as well as your actual behavior. This can look at you could be looking at things that you have control over or power over and those that you do not. This could be a time where you're revising something about your appearance or your fitness level, or your health, or your body and how you care for it, things that you're having to confront or deal with that really are about you. For Virgos, we're talking about Mars in the 12th house. Now, this is interesting because this may have something to do with those things that we cannot see. The 12th house is often an unconscious place, or a place of solitude, or a place of distance, or separation from the world, and even sometimes from ourselves. Some Virgos may find that this comes up as a period of time in which you are helpless to deal with things that are overwhelming or time consuming, or things that sort of take you out of yourself, that are stressors that you have to deal with, that feel like they're sort of, kind of trying to throw you off. I feel like Mars in the 12th sometimes feels like, why is the universe trying to mess me up right now? I was in such a nice rhythm, But Mars in the 12th can also be about facing the shadows you have of your own will or assertiveness. It's not easy for Virgos, who are often very thoughtful and caring and service oriented, to be more aggressive or assertive. Could this be a time where you're exploring the fear that you have of disappointing people, or of, tipping the scales, or, working on learning how to be more assertive and find that it's actually a good thing for you? Mars in the 12th can also represent the most undermining people or influences or things in our lives that we're here to learn from. You think about anything in the 12th house as that which undermines us, but if we develop some reflective relationship with, and we make sort of conscious the connection to those things or people that undermine us, we often grow a great deal, and we often learn exactly who and what are the good things to have in our lives or around us, and that which isn't. So anyway, Mars in the 12th for Virgos. For Libras, we have Mars in the 11th. It strikes me as a nice time to be reflecting upon the most advantageous people or groups or communities, those that are most ambitious and helpful or beneficial for us and our own ambitions, versus those people or things that might be not as useful or constructive, or maybe even damaging in some way. Mars in the 11th can depict people and things that are powerful, but maybe aggressive or domineering. And there may be a way in which we are attracted to powerful people, and we think that they're going to help us, but there's a corrosive influence that we have to be careful of with Mars and Leo in the 11th. So some opportunity to reflect on power and our social life, or power within groups or communities or professional circles, and who or what is, the best to align ourselves with, that keeps us in integrity, and that, isn't, what do I want to say? Power hungry. Yeah. I think the other thing here is about a shift or change within groups or communities that could be felt, maybe some kind of conflict or division that comes up within groups or friends, or within some larger professional network that we're a part of. So watch for that. For Scorpios, we're talking about Mars and Leo in the 10th house, which is the place of your profession, career, vocation. It's the environment of your work life. And so Mars here could be really helping you to explore or look at roles of leadership, power dynamics within the workplace, those things that you're ambitious about versus the things that maybe you're starting to lose interest in, shifts of direction or purpose that are starting to take place, as well as explorations of power, leadership, conflict within the workplace. What is and isn't a good, healthy workplace for you with respect to the human relationships, the kinds of conflicts that are bearable versus those that are not. And again, just in general, I would also say that you're looking at the potential for changes of direction or leadership somehow within that house. Sagittarius on the ascendant puts Mars in Leo in the 9th house, where we're looking at philosophy and learning, travel abroad, foreign countries, thinking about the pursuit of truth and the desire to know and understand. With Mars in that house, you often think about convictions. What am I most passionate? What am I most convicted about? What are the beliefs that I will fight for? And this could be a time that's signaling a shift in philosophy or opinion or belief, something that you feel is no longer worth fighting for, or something that you now feel is worth fighting for, a shift or change of direction with respect to your mind and your sense of life purpose or direction as it accords with life philosophy. a time that you're also maybe studying or learning something, or shifting teachers or mentors, directing or shaping, if you're a teacher, like a curriculum, refining or reshaping a course that you teach, something like that. Maybe also something around travel or foreign countries that could come up as well. For Capricorn, we're looking at Mars in the 8th house, and I think Mars in the 8th house is pretty reliably associated with power struggles. Power struggles where we're looking at what someone gives me versus what I give them, what is owed to someone versus what is owed to me. Is this relationship reciprocal? Am I using someone or being used? Is someone trying to dominate me, or am I being a domineering person? The kinds of balance, checks and balances of power, and of almost like questions about equality and inequality within the give and take of relationships, and what values, goods, services, energies are being exchanged in relationships. This, I think, is probably a big part of Mars retrograding here, which could also coincide with revisions of contracts or breaking or termination of contracts. You think of contracts here as literal, but also maybe karmic. Also facing things that you're afraid of: mortality, death, the future, anxiety about the future. This could just bring up a more existential level of working with or looking at what we fear, what we're apprehensive about. For Aquarians, Mars in Leo is in the 7th house, the place of relationships. So whether it's business partnerships or intimate romantic partners, we're looking here at conflicts in relationships, power dynamics within relationships. We're looking at maybe things like sex and desire within relationships, talking about how to honor and acknowledge individuality and uniqueness. Each person is so unique. Each person has a right to be sort of expressive, and we each want to be sort of a king and queen together, and or maybe we both want to be kings together, or maybe both queens together, or whatever. But the idea here being that there is a need to share the spotlight and look at power dynamics, and how do we stand shoulder to shoulder, both feeling effective and strong together, versus I have to be strong, so you have to be weak, or vice versa. So I look at power dynamics in relationships, as well as just challenges that can come up for a partner or within a relationship itself, and how we handle and mediate and change the narrative. Finally, for Pisces, we have Mars in Leo in the 6th. And I think here about those great works of the soul that take discipline and practice and effort and work to achieve. And with Mars retrograde here, we might be going through a sense of what struggles and great works and practices, and what is the magnum opus we feel identified with, and what work do we no longer feel identified with. There is a time at which everyone will set something down, even if you've done it for a long time. I mean, there's going to be a time at which, at some point in time, I'll probably set astrology down. Hopefully I'm nice and old or whatever, but everybody at some point says, you know what, I have been very passionate about this or that, and putting a lot of my work and soul and effort and sacrifice into something, and I'm not sure my heart is in it anymore. On the other hand, a shift of direction or strategy or revision or refinement of something that you practice or work at every day could be implied here. And also just facing challenges and struggles and conflicts and hardships, and looking at mediation or resolution of various conflicts or daily difficulties. Think of the 6th house Mars retrograde as a change in approach to how we deal with difficulties, or a change in approach to what we feel is worth it. Worth it because everything that's worth it on some level is, it's like, well, I'm going to do this because it's hard work, but it's worth it to do it. So what is worth it and what isn't? These are some of the things, again, that come to my mind with all 12 whole signs. I like to do little flash horoscopes like this, and give everybody a couple of weeks at least before something big like this happens, so we can start thinking about it. Because often what occurs is we will see the planet enter the sign where it's going to retrograde, and then the topics are already being activated. The stage is being set for the retrogradation, which is really just one critical turning point in an overall process that emphasizes these topics. So that's why I say watch for this starting now. Anyway, we'll end it here for the week. I hope that you had a nice week and that the content of this week was useful for the soul, right? Because that's why we're doing this. We're doing this because we want to bring the soul into everyday life. And if we're always just, coasting along the conveyor belt of activity after activity and thing after thing, and we're not pausing to reflect, then the soul never comes out and shows it doesn't show itself. It just says, okay, you're busy. I think astrology helps us look at the busyness with divine eyes. And so that's why I do this. That's why I hope that you find it valuable to tune into content like this. And reminder, after I sign off, there's information about the upcoming course. If you want to study with us starting on November 16th, next weekend, there's still a week left. Make sure you check out the need-based tuition option if you'd like a little bit of help. And we'll see you again Monday. Bye, everyone. Hey, everyone. I'm glad that you're sticking around to hear more about the Year 1 program that's coming up. The program starts on November 16th of this fall, and I am here today to tell you all that the program includes and why I think you really like it if you're thinking about studying astrology. So a few practical details about the course as well. The class begins November 16th, as I mentioned, but it takes place on Saturdays from 12 to about 2 or 3 p.m. Eastern time. So that's 11 to 2 Central, and typically classes are about 2 hours long. Sometimes they run over with Q&A and discussion, but you can always plan for about 2 hours and you won't miss any of the actual lecture content for the day. You may have to duck out a little early if Q&A or discussion is extending. Sometimes it does, which is why we say between 2 and 3 hours, but typically it's around 2. All of the classes are recorded, so if you can't attend live, you are more than welcome to watch the recordings at your own pace and on your own time. You have lifetime access to the recordings, and everything is housed on a student website. I want to actually give you a just a little preview of what that student website looks like. So I am going to open up my own version of Thinkific, which is the platform that we use. So here's are some of my courses. These are all the Nightlight courses I teach. You can see on the page. But I'm going to tune into, let's go to Nightlight 28, which is the section that began in June of 2024. So here you're going to see that we have orientation instructions, course information, class links, and calendar. Everything you need to know how to access the course is there, and you'll have a version of this in your own panel that you get set up with when you enroll. And then our lessons are laid out. So lesson 1, we have the video, the audio, the slides, the transcript. We have the Q&A box transcript so you can see what people were saying in the chat box during class. We have flashcards. We have a workbook. We have planet and sign glyph flashcards. We have bonus material, videos that we like from YouTube that we link you to. Say, check this video out, check that video out. They go along with some of the things we talked about in class. So every lesson has material for you to go as far as you want with, but the main thing is the video, audio, slides, transcript, etc. are all listed there so that you can download and watch it on your own time if you can't attend live. Again, the live classes do happen on Saturdays for this cohort, starting November 16th. That is our first day of class. And then going forward, it always meets on Saturdays, and we give you the class schedule to map out. And the breaks that we have, the study sessions that we have, everything's mapped out on the class calendar for you. So those are just a few practical details that, just to kind of start us off with. So I'm going to take you over to the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. And I'm going to share with you some information about the program and sort of walk you through what it includes and what you can expect. So it is an almost year-long program. We typically finish between 10 and 11 months out of the year. It can depend a little bit on some of my teaching and scheduling because sometimes I teach at conferences and it may delay some of our modules by a week or something like that. But it's typically around 10 to 11 months that the program lasts. So we call it our first year program. At Nightlight, we have a program for absolute beginners. You may want to check that out if you are like brand spanking new. That would be 8 to 10 hours of content that's really meant to set you up for the first year course. We sort of assume that if you're coming into the first year program, you already know a little bit about astrology. For example, you have some familiarity with the signs, planets, and houses. Maybe you know what aspects are, but you want to learn more about what they are. But if you are really at the very total entry level space, then try Astrology for Beginners. And when you take that, you could do that right away and then join the first year course in November, and you'd be perfectly set up for it. But anyhow, in this program, over the course of about a year, we work through 30 lessons that I lead. And those lessons are all 2 to 3 hours each, including lecture, a little break, and a Q&A portion where we open up for people to come on mic and camera and ask questions and have an interactive discussion about the material for the day. The program is broken into modules that cover a variety of topics in ancient Hellenistic astrology. That is the earliest era of horoscopic astrology. And so if you don't know a lot about the different schools of astrology, Hellenistic astrology is going to be the kind of astrology that you see a lot of astrologers practicing nowadays. It's become more popular in the last 30 years or so. And that is due to the fact that a lot of ancient texts with some of the original techniques of horoscopic astrologers were recently translated into the English language, and it's created this renaissance in terms of the use of ancient approaches to astrology. I have a background in modern psychological, archetypal, and evolutionary astrology, and so of course I bring those things to the table, but the course is primarily focused on the excavation of ancient techniques and the spiritual philosophy that ancient astrologers also espoused. The closest thing that I can tell you to what that looks like is, ask this question: do you resonate with the philosophy that you hear me take on my YouTube channel? If so, then you're going to love this course in terms of its philosophical and spiritual approach, because the spiritual approach to astrology that I teach is really at the heart of the program. And that's a big part of my life. I approach astrology from a spiritual standpoint. It doesn't belong to one religion or one particular school of thought, but you will hear me talking about things like the soul, the belief in the transmigration of the soul. You'll hear me talk about the need to be soul-centered in our client approach to counseling in astrology. You'll hear me have an appreciation for psychological dimensions of astrology, but also ancient astrology is really very, very good at developing your predictive capacity. We talk about what kinds of predictions are appropriate, how to make appropriate predictions, how to be the right kind of astrologer for our clients without inducing any fear. So there's a lot of care that goes into the development of this craft. But ancient astrology is really amazing when it comes to honing your predictive abilities. And then what you'll find is in this program, there's also a pretty significant emphasis on the psychological dimensions and client care. Anyhow, we go into the roots of ancient Hellenistic astrology and its techniques in this program, and the 30 classes are broken into modules. We work through the history and philosophy. We work through planets, houses, signs, aspects, essential and accidental dignities, and then we get into approaches to the delineation of natal charts. And then at the end of the program, almost a third of the program is dedicated to live client readings, where you're going to see me meet with a person and apply what we've been studying for an hour-long reading. We take a break, we come back, and then we workshop. How did I do that? Why did I make these choices? How did I handle this or that came up in the reading? And it becomes easily the favorite part for most students of the entire program, because by that point, you've got so much theory that you're really ready to see it put into action. We alternate those live client practice sessions with hands-on practice, where students get to bring chart questions into class that we work on. And that's also something that most people really love. A lot of people will look at the curriculum and say, well, I already know planets, houses, and signs and aspects and dignities. But not if you haven't studied Hellenistic astrology, because the approach that ancient astrologers had to these topics is vastly different from the approach that modern astrologers take. So you will be, in a sense, relearning basic things in a brand new way. And I think a much more enriching, deep, and philosophically clear way. It's really nice to know the why behind things. This program and Hellenistic astrology in general is very good at helping you understand the why behind everything that we do. Also, it's really important to participate when you study astrology in a living lineage. So one of the reasons I don't let people jump ahead to my second or third year programs is because I want you to be entrained to a lineage, a particular way of doing things that comes from an astrologer who has a very living, busy, active practice and who has had teachers themselves. I think that's important for astrological learning. That's the model that my own learning take, and so that's what I really want students to take away from my programs. Anyhow, so all of that aside, the second year program focuses, after we build our understanding of the basic delineation techniques of birth charts, in year 2, we move into timing techniques, which is all about when the karma of a birth chart is going to be active and expressing itself throughout the course of a lifetime. That's year 2. Year 3 focuses on the development of counseling skills at a much deeper level. And then we also have a 1-year horary program, which is about the development of a very specific predictive technique that can be a really amazing tool to add to your kit. That is 4 years worth of training programs that we have. However, I want to mention that many people take our classes just for the sake, purely for the sake of their own personal growth. Taking these programs is very much like being taught how to utilize a technology that for yourself will be deeply useful for the rest of your life, and maybe for close friends or family members around you. Many people come through our programs taking that benefit away. We'll study through all 4 years of our programs with no intention of being professional. This is their hobby. This is a spiritual tool that will have it will pay dividends over a long period of time. However, many people without the intention to practice come into our courses and discover that they're actually good at it and may end up reading for other people part-time. And then there are students who are deeply, intensely motivated to practice for other people. And it is not that our programs really make those people successful. Our programs contribute to your development, but it really is that some people have a calling to practice professionally. And these programs are designed to give you all the tools you need to develop that confidence and to develop a really coherent set of tools and to entrain yourself to a lineage, which you can also develop your own unique style out of. So those are some of the kinds of people that take our programs, you might say. So the 30 classes on the year are then broken into modules. And in between modules, we have 2 course directors who are present in all of the classes, and they lead breakout tutoring sessions where you can come in and review or ask questions about the module that we've just completed, which is usually anywhere between 2 and 3 classes each. So those breakout study sessions led by our tutors are outside of the 30 classes and very useful. A lot of people like to attend those because they also offer opportunity for community and just lively conversation. We also have 12 online webinar classes led by guest teachers that we host throughout the year. Those are free, and if you can't make them live, they're all uploaded into your student folder. You also have an interactive group forum discussion staffed with tutors who typically respond to questions that you have about the material within 24 hours. So if you can't attend a tutoring session or you just have a random question on a Tuesday night, you can pop it in there and you'll get an answer. We also have a ton of bonus material, optional quizzes, flashcards, tons of supplemental material that is there to help people go as deeply as they want. We have a reading list that is expansive. And that reading list, we don't expect anyone to accomplish. It's more so a resource that we give you saying, here, if you want to know all the things I've read, if you want to know all the things that I love, if you want to know all the things I recommend, here's a master list of everything for each lesson. You could go, PhD level if you wanted to and read thousands and thousands of pages, or you might find that there's just one extra book that looks really interesting and you want to pick it up. But we pride ourselves on making sure you have a ton of resources. You have lifetime access to all the class recordings. You can email our staff or me throughout the year with questions, and my staff will also defer to me in the case that they don't know the answer to a question. So that is what the program includes. It starts November 16th. If you would like to join, at the bottom between now and October 15th, our early bird payments are available. So that saves you some money off the cost of the course. There is a 12-month installment plan that is cheaper than our normal plan, a one-time payment that's significantly cheaper than our normal one-time payment. So you get these little sales that we do until October 15th. We also have need-based tuition assistance. So if you are someone who would like to take this program, but you are on a fixed or tight budget, we have an application there. Click apply now. Just tell us what you need. We give a range. We say between this dollar amount and this dollar amount, what can you spend? And then we set you up with a plan for that tuition number per month. And that is available for anyone. We ask people to apply early because those spots are limited, but we are really accommodating. We try to make sure that nobody's priced out of a spiritual education. Like, this topic should be very accessible for people because I believe that the divine is speaking through the sky, and like anyone should have access to understanding what it's saying, right? So Anyway, that is a bit about the program. I hope that this has been useful for you. If there are any questions you have, you can look over the curriculum content on the page, on the year one page. There's more information there. Check out the FAQ section for more questions. Email us info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope to see some of you in class soon. I think this is going to be a really powerful program because it's also starting right as Pluto is moving into Aquarius. And within the year, we're going to have a Uranus-Pluto trine with Uranus in Gemini. These Aries signatures and the connection between Uranus and Pluto make for a very powerful year to advance our understanding of astrology. So it's a great election year for studying. And I hope to see some of you in class soon.